Thank you for joining us today. We're going to continue with our discussion about tools to understand your market. And today we're going to focus on demographic and economic information resources. Understanding your market is the key to appropriately maximizing the value for commercial real estate. And there are really two components that we're going to discuss. The first is people, that's demographics. And so we look at the units that we measure as geographies. We have formal geographies, and we're going to give you a couple of tools about that. And we have functional geographies. The difference is that formal geographies are boundaries identified by the government. Functional geographies are boundaries that you identify yourself. And we're going to talk about that in a future session. In addition to people, because real estate is space for people, we're going to look at jobs, economy. Jobs is another tool for estimating demand for commercial real estate. We'll take a look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Economy at a Glance tool, and the quarterly census of employment and wages. Formal geographies, what's out there? There are 3,143 counties or county equivalents in the United States. That is the most consistent unit of formal geography. When you think about it, city boundaries may change in between census, but counties don't. So it's a very consistent model for understanding economic and demographic changes. And then some of the other formal geographies that we occasionally use for analytics, zip codes. And then the Census Bureau starts off with census blocks. There's over 8 million of those in the country. There's about 41 people in a census block. That information is not publicly distributed. Census block groups, there's almost 250,000 of those. That's a combination of census blocks, and that's the basis that we use for functional geography analytics and, of course, census tracts. So the other unit of formal geography that we often will look at are metropolitan statistical areas. Metropolitan statistical areas are combinations of one or more county that have a combined economic impact. The Office of Management and Budget creates these units. And in the United States, we now have 384 metropolitan statistical areas. It's one or more county with at least one census population city of 50,000 or more. And then there's 543 micropolitan statistical areas. That's where the major city is under 50,000 but more than 10,000. Looking at census, the tool that we reference is Census Quick Facts. And so let's take a look at that for a moment, and we'll discuss how it helps us to understand things. This is the Census Quick Facts report for our geography, Lakeland, Winter Haven, Polk County, Florida, in the United States. And typically we arrange the geographies in kind of descending order, if you will. Starting from right to left. So we look at the United States, there's about 331 million people as of the census. Florida's about 21.7. Polk County now is over 250,000. And then the city of Lakeland is 115,000. Winter Haven's about half that size at 52,000. The data that's shared with us in the Quick Facts report is absolutely remarkable. It breaks down what the census was in 2010, what it was in 2020, and then, of course, the growth between 2020 and 2021. It gives us a ethnic breakdown, tells us how many people are Hispanic, speak a language other than English at home, tells us a foreign-born, housing unit information, median rent, tells us households, how many percentage of the households have a computer and internet subscription. And that's interesting to see the differences in some geographies and compared to the state in the United States. And then, of course, when we look at the economy, it gives us median household income per capita and transportation. That's the mean commuting time. We'll cover that a little more in a spreadsheet. Let's take a look, same framework, for the geography that we focus on as a company. That's Orange County, Lake County, Osceola County, Polk County in Florida. And again, we can see this data, the population. Orange County is the largest at 1.4 million. It's interesting that Orange County's population growth has really slowed over the last year and a half. By comparison, we see that Polk, Osceola, and Lake County are growing. They're growing 3 times faster than the state, and the state's growing 10 times faster than the country. So bottom line, it's good to be here. Let's go back to our slide presentation for a moment, and we have a couple of kind of drill down analytics. You can take the information from Census Quick Facts and export it to Excel so you can do a little more analytics. And that's what we're sharing with you here. The last algorithm update from the Census Bureau was 456 days. So you can see the population change, the annual change, we've annualized it, and the growth per day. And that's rather amazing when you think about it. We compare that, the bottom half of the chart gives us what it was between the last 2 census, 2010 to 2020. So it's interesting to see that both the country and the state of Florida slowed in growth over the last year and a half, but not Polk County. Polk County's increased. And the same is true for the cities in Polk County, but just a little data point for you. Polk County's growing now, according to the census algorithms, by 62 people a day. Let's also look at the household characteristics, which is an extraction from Census Quick Facts. And it's very interesting. It gives us median household income. That's the top line. In median household income, it means that half the households earn more, half the households earn less. It's interesting to observe the comparison between the United States at about 65,000, Florida at about 58,000. In our geography, Polk County is 51.5, Lakeland and Winter Haven are slightly lower. Some of this is related to the age of the population and the distribution. It's also interesting to see the number of owner-occupied units and the median value of those. Again, our geography is a little below, trailing both the United States and Florida. That's one reason for this sustained growth, is the value opportunity that exists in Polk County and the residential market. Looking at the bottom of the chart, we get a chance to see persons per household. Household really is the unit of demand for housing. And in the country, it's about 2.6. The state's about the same. Households are a little larger in Polk County and a little smaller in Lakeland. Part of that is just age related. The bottom line is a very interesting data point: mean travel time to work. Well, in the country, it's about 27 minutes. What does that mean? It means that if you have to travel more than about 30 minutes to go from one point to another, you have what we in commercial real estate analytics call a broken linkage. And so there's reduced connectivity. That's the case here in Polk County between Lakeland and Winter Haven. It takes more than 30 minutes to drive from one point to the other, and thus the central business districts and the economies of those cities has not aggregated together as it has in maybe other areas. If I-4 or the Polk Parkway ran through downtown Lakeland and downtown Winter Haven, it would be a different story. The other item that's interesting is to look at housing units and households. We see that there's more housing units than households. Why is that? It's because not everybody in a housing unit is included in the census of that geography. In the country, we have about 13% more housing units than households. Those are people that aren't in the census, foreign nationals, and multiple housing units owned by people, and housing units that are categorized as like vacation homes. It's interesting that in Florida and Polk County, those numbers are much higher. Let's now move from looking at people to looking at job. That's employment. And the first tool that we're going to take you to is the Bureau of Labor Statistics economy at a glance. This is what the site looks like when we populate it. And we click on Florida to take us to what's going on in Florida. And it gives us the labor force, the difference between employment, which is the second line, and non-farm employment, is that employment is the household survey. It's kind of like they call your house and say, do you have a job? So they report how many people live there that have a job. And then non-farm is establishment survey. That's where companies report how many people work there. Let's look for a moment, since we're in Florida, at the metropolitan statistical areas. Let's go to Lakeland. The Lakeland-Winter Haven MSA is Polk County. It's interesting when we look at the civilian labor force. The labor force is about 340,000. You remember looking at population, it was 750,000. Well, the definition of labor force, which the Bureau of Labor Statistics uses, is people who have a job, people who don't have a job, and are looking for a job. So people under 16, people that are retired, people that are not looking for a job aren't counted in that. The labor force participation rate in the country at the moment is a little over 62%. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth, and many economists mix that. It's just a matter of getting more people to go back to work, so to speak. But as we look at Polk County, this is a disaggregation of establishment survey into what we call super sectors. We also have historic, so let's take a quick look at this. This is the chart showing us employment for the last 10 years. And it's really interesting. From the chart, it's clear, and we have a table there as well. We at Polk County are at an all-time high. You can see the impact of the pandemic and the recession, but it's back. We're doing very well here. And that is part of a strong market. We see the disaggregation of people into these categories, but let's take a closer look. One of the tools that we can use for analysis is to look at the quarterly census of employment and wages. That's the QCEW website. And we want to focus in on what's called the data view. So let's take a moment and do that. We'll go to QCEW. This is the page that we referenced, and we want to take the data viewer, and let's think about disaggregation by NAICS code. That's a North American Industrial Classification System. Let's take one sector. There are 20 of these two-digit NAICS numbers. We put in our area, which is Polk County, Florida, and let's see, we can find that. I left out the comma, forgive me, so I'll just put in the FIPS code. We got it. Let's get the table. Let's take a look at what this tells us. This is the employment. It's done on a quarterly basis. It gives us the number of establishments, the number of jobs, the wages, average weekly wage, and then the location quotient. So the disaggregation by two digits in our market, you can see it begins with agriculture, mining, utilities, construction. We can see how many jobs, transportation, warehousing is a big item, and we end up with 81 other services except public administration. It's interesting that this data set does not include the government. Which is included, that's NAICS, the 90 series, which is included in the BLS economy at a glance numbers. But I think in many cases, people feel that, at least at the government level, that we have the right number of government jobs in each unit of geography. One of the powerful components of looking at the quarterly census of employment and wages is that we can sort by location quotient. And location quotient gives us the ability to see where we are outperforming the market, if you will. There is a location quotient details explanation, but the bottom line is the local employment percentage in this particular industrial classification is the numerator, and the national is the denominator. So let's go back and see how this helps us to see. So in our market, in the Lakeland-Winter Haven Metropolitan Statistical Area, Polk County, we have 2.73 times as many jobs in transportation and warehousing as the national average. We can see management of companies. We've got some headquarters here. That's the reason for that looking good. Retail trade. And then, when you get to one, we're about the same as the national. So this is a good way to see where's the big strength in our economy and things to watch out for associated with that. As I mentioned, the location quotient details explanation is actually pretty simple. It just shows the ability to categorize outperformance. Well, thank you for joining us. Remember that real estate is space for people. And so understanding the population, the changes in population, the characteristics of the population, and jobs, because where people work is the demand for commercial real estate. So we go through the same process to understand the local economy. We think that's important. If you understand the local economy, you'll make better decisions about investing in commercial real estate. Thank you for joining us.